Hello, and welcome to the Learning Alchemy Lab, the podcast where teaching expertise meets intentional design and learning is transformed into something that truly lasts. I'm your host, Dr. Alexis Bajelica, an online education expert with more than 2 decades of teaching experience and nearly 15 years in online course design. I help educators, coaches, and thought leaders create learning experiences that are engaging, inclusive, and built for real impact. Whether you're creating your first course or refining an existing program, if you care about teaching well and helping your learners truly grow, you're in the right place. So get curious and step into the lab where knowledge becomes transformation and teaching becomes learning alchemy. Welcome to the Learning Alchemy Lab. This is my very first episode, so I have a little extra nervous energy. Bear with me. But I wanted to tell you more about me, my journey, and why I believe so strongly in the power of education. So think about it. Have you ever had just an awesome teacher, a professor, coach, mentor, somebody who made you love a subject that you might not have otherwise because their passion for it was so strong, or their ability to make you feel confident in doing that thing was just so high? And I love that. I love the power of an awesome teacher because it can be the difference between sticking with something that's hard or giving it up altogether. And I see time and time again too many dreams dashed because they don't have the right support structure in place. For me, I feel like if I had an actual teacher or vocal coach showing me how to sing, I would be able to sing, but I just so do not think I can sing. I probably will never try. I have had wonderful music instructors though, and I've gone out to seek additional music instructors. And right now I'm learning violin and trying by myself. I would have given up long ago, but having an awesome teacher who makes it fun for me, who gives me confidence in my own ability, who isn't comparing me to anybody else or where I should be, is recognizing my own strengths and ability, make me feel unstoppable. And then they're able to give me actual quality feedback. It's all the things. Do I want to become a professional violinist? No. But do I love learning this new skill that would totally be out of reach if I didn't have the right teacher? And I see too often people give up on things that they really want to do, that they really could succeed in or thrive at. And I see it for businesses, I see it in personal ways, I see it in professional ways all the time where lives are changed either because of a really good learning experience or because of a really bad learning experience. And I do not want anybody to suffer through bad learning experiences anymore. I don't want them wasting their money, their time, or giving up on dreams or ideals that really matter to them just because they didn't have the right teacher. And I say this not trying to put teachers down. It's often because in our day-to-day lives, there are teachers around us everywhere, but most people are not taught how to teach. And so they have this knowledge and expertise, but they don't know how to get it across to others. So that is a gap that I am trying to solve far and wide, and especially trying to help people see that there's a better way than maybe the way they were taught. Education has come a long ways, and there are so many tips and tricks out there, but they go against sometimes the normal mode of traditional education systems. And I think in an effort to modernize education, we have to put the learner first. We have to empathize with what they're going through, and we really need to think about how to activate and engage our learner population to set them up for success, to show them that they can do the thing. And so that's more about what I'm going to get into in this podcast. Personally, I've been an educator for more than 2 decades, and I've taught K through 12, I've taught adults, I've taught university students, I've taught immigrants, I've taught leaders, CEOs, I've onboarded new employees by the tens, hundreds, thousands. I've taught coaches, entrepreneurs, and ultimately now I just like to say I teach others how to teach online because I think online is also a really powerful medium that intimidates a lot of people. And I want to try to lessen the nervousness around it. So I say all this because I have been an educator in many ways for a long time, but I didn't start off thinking I wanted to be a teacher. It was the furthest thing from my mind. I specifically didn't think I was capable. And so I'll get to that more in a minute. It kind of all starts with the fact that I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was good at a lot of things. I loved learning. I had a good attitude, but the thought of choosing one thing to specialize in really overwhelmed me. My sister every week had a new idea like, I want to be an opera singer. I want to be a clerk at the grocery store. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a scientist, whatever it was. Like she had all these artist, singer, all these things. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I kind of want to learn everything. And I'm afraid I'm not going to be good enough at anything. And I think that also stemmed from the fact that I felt school was a bit hard. Like I said, I loved learning, but I was a really shy student. I never raised my hand. I hated being called on. I remember having to read, it was like I needed to cut out a news article, a headline, or maybe it was just a photo. And it was a standalone photo of someone burning an American flag that had been at the front of the Dallas Times Herald. And I don't know why I picked it out, but it was like, okay, it was simple enough. It was a political statement. It was kind of like show the picture, read the headline. And I remember feeling like I just froze. I just froze because I couldn't read the word baby in front of the class. And I think I was fifth grade. And I just remembered I thought, oh no, I'm a failure. I can't, like, I can read, but I was too scared to read aloud to everyone else. And it was that feeling over and over and over again of teachers telling me in kindergarten, they didn't want to pass me on to the next grade, even though I was academically doing very well. I was too shy to speak up. So they said, that's going to hinder you, or you should be held back. I wasn't. And now I talk plenty. But I remember in college once, a teacher sending the whole class out because we weren't participating in dialogue enough. Like we weren't conversing as a whole class group. She wanted people raising their hands. She wanted people sharing their thoughts and opinions. And my brain just didn't know how to compute that in real time fast enough to make the impact I think she wanted us to have. And I felt like honestly, I felt like a loser because of it. I felt like I was missing something everybody else had. And I thought, I'm never going to be successful because I I don't like to speak up. I like to think about my answers. And now I do very much process aloud, but I've come a long way. And I for the longest time just thought I wasn't going to be successful because I wasn't the confident, outgoing student that I think all these teachers thought I should be, thought that's what the picture of success was. And I've learned since then that success comes in a lot of different shapes and forms. And in fact, I think the most successful people are the ones who also know how to listen and empathize and are not eager to just say whatever comes to their mind in the moment. And I also think there's a place for that and there's a value to that. But let me tell you a little bit more. So, learning, like, while school was difficult and I felt like I couldn't think fast enough, I still loved learning. And it was a huge part of my upbringing. My grandparents lived next door. And when I'd get home from school every day, they actually lived in a mobile home trailer in our pasture. And I'd immediately go next door, get my Oreo cookies, and my grandmother would ask us about what we learned in school that day. And she'd always point it out as, ooh, did you get any new squiggles? And squiggles is how she referred to all the little folds and grooves in your brain that actually help you store more information and learn more. So she called them our squiggles. And this was the 80s, 90s. We didn't have the internet per se, but we had an old set of encyclopedias that she constantly cut newspaper clippings, put things in there. She constantly was referring us, ooh, let's go look that up in the World Book. And, we'd look up, oh, let's see what's in here. And those World Books were probably, I think they were from 1968. So whatever was the bank of knowledge in the world from 1968, that was kind of my frame of reference for a long time. But she also taught me the value of being curious and constantly seeking answers and wanting to learn from others. Both my grandparents were wonderful conversationalists, and there's never a wasted opportunity if you have a chance to ask others questions. Life is always worthwhile. Experiences are always worthwhile when you get an opportunity to learn from somebody else. So that's the mindset I was raised with. So still, like I said, I was really overwhelmed by wanting to learn so much and also not knowing what thing to choose. So when I went off to college, I didn't know what to major in. And I did know, though, that I didn't want to be a teacher. I thought that was perhaps the hardest job in the whole world. And I didn't think I'd be qualified. Like, how do you have answers to everyone's questions? How do you help all these students who need something so different? I will give you a hint now. As a teacher, you do not have to have all the answers. And the more you can admit that you don't have all the answers is actually going to make you a better teacher. But I ended up majoring in English, loved to read, was good at writing. I ultimately earned a master's degree in journalism, and it was one of three master's degrees I earned before my doctorate. So yes, I really liked school and I liked learning. I liked that fact about it. And when I kind of I just kept choosing new things, and journalism really fit my personality because wanting to ask lots of questions and getting to become this mini expert in a variety of subjects, that was a good thing. I will say, it also really clued me into some key facts that I've later explored in life, being that my first master's degree was totally traditional face to face learning experience where we were all in the classroom. And I'd say 98% of us were fresh out of our undergraduate. So we hadn't had a lot of real world experience beyond academia yet. Whereas my second master's degree was fully online. And I actually was teaching in South Korea at the time, and I got a degree in teaching English to speakers of other languages. So that's where I got some more, kind of my first formal teaching experience. Though I fell into teaching in my first master's program through being a grad student and getting to teach like an intro sort of writing 101 intro to journalism class for freshmen. And to me, there wasn't a strong curriculum to follow. It was a lot of here's some key ideas, but my job was to think of activities and how do I help my students who were not much younger than me learn how to do the thing, how to practice the different techniques, how to get curious, how to interviewing techniques and writing techniques. And it was fun thinking of ways to really make it applicable and practical. And that's what I loved about journalism. But when I actually got my second master's, it was in TESOL, teaching English, and it was fully online. And I'd already gotten a job abroad teaching English. I had an English degree, and it was kind of a lot learn as you go, but I really loved it. And I loved it because the other students in my program ranged in ages, ranged in locations, ranged in experiences, but I got to learn from them like, ooh, you'd been in a classroom for middle school students, or this other person they taught for 10 years teaching adults in rural Chicago, or somebody else who had lived in Europe. And I just got all these experiences I got to learn from versus just my classroom in Korea. And the teacher set it up in a way where there was a lot of dialogue and interaction. It wasn't just read this and memorize it and regurgitate it for a test. It was a lot of meaning making and let's figure out share ideas and brainstorm and think about all these cultural differences. And What I loved at the end of the day was the power I felt, the empowerment of being able to think about my answers before I posted to the discussion board. And it was rudimentary. It didn't matter. I see now, like, gosh, it was not fancy. It wasn't the best learning management system. It wasn't the best technology. We didn't use video much, if at all. But it was still a meaningful learning experience because I felt like I was on an equal playing field with everybody else. My brain didn't freeze because I could think about what I wanted to say. And yes, a lot of it was asynchronous, but I found a lot of value picking, choosing, and reflecting on what others had said and what I wanted to share. So I think there's a lot of value to be said, and I have seen it lessen inhibitions. I have seen online learning create more accessible, inclusive, equitable learning experiences. And so that's another reason why I really get excited thinking about that. I ended up, after my journalism degree, I ended up moving to Vail, Colorado, and working for a newspaper. I was a reporter for a while. I was a copy editor. I was a features writer. And like I said, I learned a lot. I loved kind of feeling like, ooh, I get to become this mini expert on a lot of different subjects. But what I didn't like is that I didn't feel like I was helping people as much as I was bothering them. I need another quote. I had quotas. I needed information. I needed it quickly. And it depends on maybe what the story is. Because yes, I do think journalists play a key role, especially when they go about it in ethical ways. But newspapers, at the end of the day, are a business and you're kind of pumping out information. And sometimes depending on you and the editor, it feels better like, oh, this isn't ready yet. Let's just save it. Let's have it wait. And that's where I think there was a disconnect for me. It didn't feel like I was helping the community as much as I wanted to. But it was during that time where I interacted with a lot of non-native English speakers because of all the service jobs in a tourist town like Vail, lots of skiing in the winter, lots of hiking and mountain exploration in the summer. So I ended up volunteering for our local literacy project. And that's where I started helping folks learn English that would help them with their jobs, communicating with their kids' schools, studying for their naturalization exams, all of that good stuff. And it led me to thinking that I could actually be good at this teaching thing because I saw the value that I was bringing to people's lives directly. And I loved it. I also was in great awe of how much of a sacrifice my students were making, being out of their comfort zone, being in a new cultural society, new communities that maybe weren't, a lot of them were not in their home countries anymore. And so I decided I wanted to know what it was like to get out of my comfort zone that much. And so an opportunity came up and I moved to South Korea to teach English. And I ended up teaching there for 5 years. And I'm sure this will come through in stories from time to time because I learned so much from that experience. Kind of being out of your comfort zone is where you learn what you value and appreciate and how others see your own culture and your own assumptions and all those things. But I'm going to leave that alone for now. And fast forward a little bit because I had a baby in South Korea and he was about 13, 14 months when we moved back to the States. And I ended up getting a job at a university in Oregon where I taught at an intensive English language program. And I taught international students. I ended up working as a student success counselor for first generation and low income students. And so it put me in this mindset continually of, what is it like to be working so hard? I saw my students really wanting to succeed and really putting themselves out there and striving to do exactly what the teachers wanted. And sometimes at the end of the day, what I felt like was lacking is you, the student, are trying, and I can help with your academic skills, your study skills, your reading, writing, speaking, listening skills, all those things. But what I couldn't do was fix professors who maybe didn't care or maybe didn't know how to communicate in the best way to be more inclusive of different learning styles and different cultures. And I don't want to say all professors don't care, but that it felt like, I can't fix that until I became an instructional designer. And so I went from the classroom and from advising to instructional design because that's where I thought, I can make a bigger influence on the way the curriculum's structured and the approaches that faculty use when interacting with and teaching students. And so that led me kind of to the career path I've been on for the longest. And I still teach and I still do instructional design and I facilitate and I do a lot of things in the education space. But it all stemmed because I didn't want to just reach the 20 or 30 students in my class, one class at a time. I didn't want to just give students the tools as an advisor or counselor on how to advocate for themselves, how to enhance their study skills, how to approach each subject and situation. I realized I needed to teach the faculty too, because it's wrong assumption just to think that you are an expert in your field. And in fact, most people who are experts in their field really struggle to convey that information to novices because either it came really easily to them or they've been doing it for so long they forget what it's like to be at the beginning, at the early stages. So I loved getting to expand the horizon and really help the faculty improve their approaches to teaching, face to face, online, all versions, you name it. Hybrid, that was also a common modality. So, my first full-time instructional design job was actually I'd moved back to Colorado and I worked at a medical campus with a lot of doctors who also had teaching duties. And unfortunately, I would say more of them really didn't care about improving their teaching methods. It was very much like this badge of honor. I learned it the hard way, you should too. And I felt for those students because part of it's an ego thing on the instructor side, and part of it's just the tradition. It's like this is what has been ingrained, and still a medical degree is not supposed to be easy. And yes, I get all that, but I also wanted students to feel set up for success. I wanted learning, like to give them the space, the psychological safety to ask more questions, to admit when they didn't know something, to learn from their mistakes, because that is human. They are in school. That is part of the process. And too often it was, I think, because it was seen as just more efficient, the sage on the stage mentality, which is I'm the expert. I am the holder of all the knowledge, and it is my job to impart wisdom to you. I will speak and lecture to you, and it's just your job to learn. And that's a very passive way of interacting with content. And the power dynamics created another struggle right there. And it's honestly a very old-fashioned way of thinking because the brain does not retain information simply by hearing it said to them. Now, a professor can use wonderful stories and examples, and that will help, but you need to have the students do something with that information. They need to apply it to their real lives and situations. They need to practice thinking through and recalling information. Learning needs to be a bit of a struggle. You can't just highlight reading passages or practice some flashcards and call it good. learning takes so much more effort if you really want it to be stored and long term, and if you want your students to be able to apply it in complex, varied situations. So that was part of my goal. How do we create more engaging? How do I convince? Because there were faculty who genuinely cared so much and they wanted to do better for their students. And time is of the essence too. We all have limited time in a day. And ultimately, I ended up getting my doctorate. I did a doctorate of education, and my dissertation focused on accelerated designing and delivering accelerated learning experiences. And what I saw was people trying to push more information and creating shorter semesters, shorter classes where you just cram more information into that time period. We know in a lot of ways that's not ideal. The brain needs space. The brain needs time to forget and then recall that information again and apply it in multiple situations. But I also know this applies in so many real world examples because we don't have all the time in the world and we want to get to the outcomes faster. And so, how do we balance that? And what I saw so many faculty giving up was the connection between students and getting to see that faculty member like a real person. And they would focus more on the directive, prescriptive, like, here's what you need to do this, answer it this way, and kind of just churning things out. And so I really try to strike a balance when I approach teaching and learning because I know that community aids in the learning experience. It helps keep us engaged. It helps us not feel so alone when things get hard. It helps us persevere when we make mistakes. It helps us feel more comfortable asking questions and sparking new ideas when we hear others and what they've tried, celebrating their successes, feeling like somebody will celebrate our success. All of that is really vital. And I think that'll come through in a lot of what I have to share in this podcast. But the real reason I ultimately started my own business was because of these coaching programs I was in. And I started my own coaching business and course design and helping others with online learning design and designing full programs because I was taking so many coaching programs where I saw the lost potential. The coaches were brilliant. Don't get me wrong. They had amazing abilities. They genuinely cared, but they didn't know how to create learning experiences that really set clients up for long-term success. And didn't always set things up in a way that would prevent their own burnout. Sometimes when you care so much, you wear your heart on your sleeve and you just feel like you have to give and give and give. And that's not good either, especially online where we feel like we have to be on call 24/7 because we have these funny little things in our hands that can help us be reached at any time and place. And so I'll give you an example. In my first coaching program, it was actually for difficult co-parenting situations. And I found a group coaching program, and I cannot say enough positive things about the creator of this program. And he was a fantastic one-on-one coach, and he had amazing things. I could see in the moment he knew what to say to people. He had a wonderful through line, focus, empathy, all the things. He also kind of knew how to give tough love in the right doses. But I found every week he'd be repeating the same things because new people would be coming on, or maybe somebody never watched. He had all these videos on Kajabi that he would share, and recordings and worksheets. And there were good nuggets of information in all of it. But there was just so much sitting there. I didn't know how to approach it. I didn't really know if there was like, do I start here? Do I like, how is this relevant to what we're doing? on the live calls, and it just kind of felt all over the place. There wasn't a clear structure. There was amazing potential in the content, but it did not translate to a learning experience for me. So I stopped referencing it. It kind of felt like random because, oh, he's going to just say the same thing in the live calls anyways. We didn't get that chance to go deeper because of it, because he was stuck talking about the surface level topics that could have been presented in those videos in a more cohesive, coherent way. Missed opportunity. I think of another wonderful business coach, my first business coach that I worked with. And she was such a good coach and she asked such good questions and the care she had and her own success. It was top notch. She was really good at the mindset work too and coaching people on the spot. But she had an entire workbook that was supposed to accompany the program, but it was almost never referenced. And there was no accountability. Like it wasn't like, oh, here, there's some interactivity. Let me do these exercises and get feedback. It was kind of just like I'm on my own. And because it wasn't integrated, and for me, at least in a thoughtful way, with the rest of the program, I maybe looked at it two or three times. There was mostly at the beginning, and then I just stopped referencing it. I couldn't get through it. It didn't feel relevant. So I think about all the time that a learner could have wasted because partly I didn't even know where to look. It was just so many pages. Maybe it needed more organization. Maybe it needed to be designed more like a curriculum. Maybe it needed to be integrated. And I don't want coaches, entrepreneurs wasting their time creating materials that don't get looked at, but I also don't want the learner wasting their time either if it's not adding value outside of the live one-on-one or group experiences. I know that quality teaching and learning is needed everywhere. All industries, all ages, all abilities, all backgrounds. But we assume too often if you're an expert in your field, you just should know how to teach it. And that's a wrong assumption. There's a whole science behind teaching and learning. And that's why I got a doctorate in education. I wanted to help provide people with lifelong skills that actually help them learn a new behavior, learn that new skill, gain a new mindset, adjust their goals in ways that are truly life-changing. And you shouldn't have to do it alone. I think honestly, anyone is capable of learning anything with the right supports in place. I think a takeaway for me is that I found a lot of times the best teachers did not set out to become teachers. And too often I see the teaching and learning treated like an afterthought. People focus on the marketing. People focus on the money they're investing. People think it's just, I need to just repeat myself more. I need to just say it louder. I need to just expand my network. And time after time, it's the quality of the product that is bringing people back or not bringing people back. It's the quality of that learning experience that is helping people see you as the go-to thought leader or expert or person who's going to help them get through the hard times. And when you put out a quality learning experience, people will naturally come back to you. They will rave about you. They will recommend you to their friends, and they're going to finish your program and your courses, and then they're going to get the results that you so want for them. I think we need to get past the idea of teaching being a one-way flow of information. I'm the teacher, you're the student, listen, because the best learning experiences I've had, and I've learned so much because I have a wonderful class of students I'm taking with, class of students I'm teaching. I learn from everybody. those are the best learning experiences. And that's the ideas I try to infuse in each of my classes, that everyone is a resource, everyone is a valuable contributor, and everyone deserves to be empathized with. Leaning into, how do we create the structure? I can teach you that, but how do you create that genuine empathy and heart? That's something that you have inside. And if I were going to give a perfect formula, it doesn't exist, for the right lesson plan, and it has to work for you, but it really doesn't matter if the lesson plan is perfect. If you have genuine care and empathy for your learners, that's going to shine through. And that's where you're going to come back to try to improve those situations to make the experience better for your students. And that is what students are going to remember. It's kind of that, people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. And I think we need more of that empathy in education. And we need to see the learners as equal parts of the success. They're a valuable part of the equation. It's not all on you. It's this two-way street. So you don't need to boost your own authority by putting down others. And in fact, when we add that empathy, when we lift our learners up more, we show them that they are capable of whatever they set their mind to. And that kind of learning is infectious. It's contagious. And that's where the power ultimately comes. So that's a little bit about me, why I care so much about my learners and the experience. And I also care about other teachers and empowering others who may not feel like they're naturally gifted at teaching, or maybe you realize that there's ways that you could improve what you're doing. You're not supposed to know it all. And there's a lot of practical tips and tricks that I can help you with and I look forward to imparting along the way. I just want to make quality education so people don't feel like they're wasting their time, their money, or their potential. So I think that's enough of me today. I've enjoyed sharing my ideas and thoughts with you, and I so appreciate having you here listening. Thanks for tuning in to the Learning Alchemy Lab. If you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe and connect with me on Instagram at The Learning Alchemist. Until next time, keep teaching with intention and creating learning that truly transforms.